여러분 즐거운 휴일이네요. 밖에 미세먼지가 아주 심합니다. 뿌예요, 뿌예. 그래도 운동을 해야겠죠. 운동하겠습니다. 잠을 많이 잤는데 이렇게 졸리지? 발굽혀펴기랑 복근 운동 할게요. 스트레칭이랑.
Deploying solar where there is absolutely no electricity grid. The Malawi opportunity, we're feeding into the grid of ESCO Malawi. But with just one solar plant, we're increasing the generation capacity of the country by about 10 to 15%. Well, what we did in Niger, where we electrified a whole village of 2,000 people, that was a genuine off-grid activity. So meaning going to electrify a community that will foreseeable time not have any electricity access at all, apart from our solar.
Tell me the pitch, Martin. Tell me how you charmed it. Share it with me.
Look, you have to be very. You basically look at failed projects that other people don't bother doing. So and this is basically the extra mile you have to do if you cannot if you cannot put a lot of substance on the table. And then I mean, now we do more conventional business because we have our own balance sheet. We put our own money into projects. We develop projects from scratch. But I still try to keep this spirit alive of going the extra mile and of not turning a blind eye on opportunities that present themselves.
So tell me about going into an African market versus going into other emerging markets, and are you making more profits in Africa versus what you're seeing in your other markets?
I would say the main difference with our African projects is that we are required to work very intensively from the get-go with the communities, and especially the environmental work is a work stream that does not exist in that form in other countries. So I try to always stay hungry and look at these opportunities that are maybe not as, these diamonds in the rough that you have to polish in order to turn something into.
Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Marketplace Africa. Take a look at our past stories on our website and keep up with us on social media. From me, Eleni Jokos, here in Johannesburg, I'll see you next time in the Marketplace.
The Profit Point, in association with Dangote.
The coronavirus pandemic has changed the world, the way we live, work, and travel. Tourism is one of the industries that has taken the hardest hit, and we take a look at how technology is helping to play a role in its recovery.
That was interesting. You recognize your passport and face and do a match. In fact, even smarter than an agent.
Will new tech travel safeguards create an industry that's safer than ever before?
Inventing Tomorrow, today on CNN, in association with DBS Bank.
Everything that we think about has to have a future life.
We can live our lives that are more in balance with nature.
We will have a world that is much better thanks to technology.
I'm Nikki Shields for CNN Saved by the Future.
From the way we live to the way we connect, forward-thinking experts to share how our urban world is transforming tomorrow.
너무 뿌옇다. 진짜 하늘이 엄청 뿌예요. 지금 장난
In
아니에요.
association with Hyundai.
와.
Hey, I'm Anderson Cooper. I'm
비가 차라리 비가
the show Full Circle is back. You can watch every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, 6 p.m. live.
비가
Eastern
많이
Time or
와가지고.
anytime on demand. And to make sure you never miss a show, you can get alerts on every episode of the CNN app.
청소기가 지금 집안을 다 부시고 있어.
The Dangote Group stands at the forefront of African enterprise, with substantial investments that will propel the continent towards greater prosperity. Dangote, for an empowered Africa.
Marketplace Africa, where we cover the biggest economic trends impacting the continent. I'm Eleni Jokos in Johannesburg. Now, with the shutting down of factories, demand for non-essential products came under significant pressure. Manufacturing on a global scale has declined significantly. And here in South Africa alone, the sector declined by 16% this past June compared to the same time last year. Now, for companies that were able to pivot and adapt quickly, there are new opportunities on the horizon. So let's take a look. Production lines silent, orders cancelled. It's been a tough year for South African manufacturers.
You're seeing some companies really kind of hunker down, try to cut costs, minimize workforce.
Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, manufacturing was already in decline, down from a high of 22% of the country's GDP in the mid-1980s to just 12% in 2019. Then, in March of 2020, the production of non-essential items came to a virtual standstill. For some companies, the challenge sharpened their focus.
Some of our manufacturing companies identified the opportunity to increase production in medical equipment and personal protective equipment required in direct response to the pandemic.
For Johannesburg-based manufacturer UMass, adapting over the past few months has paid off.
Exporting and growing beyond Africa has been in our long-term goals, but COVID gave us the opportunity to showcase our product and what we can do as an African manufacturer, as a high-quality African manufacturer.
Before the pandemic, the company was already manufacturing masks for the mining industry.
So prior to COVID, we were working on a medical range because our biggest thing that we wanted to develop was a TB mask, and we were working on that for some time, doing research on the raw materials, doing research on the filtering medias and that sort of thing, to make it as efficient as possible and to provide the healthcare workers with the highest protection level possible.
Within weeks, they had retooled their production lines and sent 30,000 masks to the epicenter of the pandemic in Wuhan in China. The masks met the quality requirements for frontline workers, and soon the orders started rolling in.
Prior to COVID, 90% of our product was based locally, and then 10% was going to the African countries. After COVID, our exports sitting at about 20 to 30% now. We export to obviously the African countries, we export to Europe, we export to Asia as well, which would include countries like China.
At a time when most manufacturers were laying off their employees, UMass tripled their staff. Now the company says 188 employees operate the factory 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to meet demand.
We know now when it comes to filtering efficiency, we can compete with anyone in the world, regardless of who they are, where they are, American, European, Asian. We know exactly how our mask performs.
South Africa's exports were worth $90 billion in 2019, with a majority of exports going to countries within the continent. But one of the biggest challenges facing manufacturers is the lack of localized components.
So I think one of the things that stands out about our environment, we tend to import a lot. So we rely on extended value chains. And also if you look at intermediate manufacturing in the country, we import a lot of components in.
Industry leaders like Rodsec believe local component manufacture is critical for future growth.
The manufacturing sector can become more resilient by identifying items within a value chain that are critical, and if those are not manufactured locally, to look at the opportunity of doing so.
For manufacturers like beauty and health brand Amka, a well-established export department and experience developing products, repurposing their production lines came naturally.
I think one quick win was the fact that we were able to pass through all the accreditations that were necessary for a WHO sanitizer under our brand Cuticura that is used by all frontline workers and even during the testing periods.
Masks were next on their radar.
There was no time to ship machinery, so we flew the machinery down. We also managed to source local suppliers, made in South Africa products that we could use to make 3-ply masks. And that for us was a big win, that we were able to source locally.
Amidst such challenging times, a long-term silver lining has emerged for these companies.
We need to get to a position whereby we manufacture what we consume, and we manufacture to also export, and manufacture to compete.
When we talk about import replacement, we should not just duplicate the products that we are importing. We should rise up to the challenge of improving those products. And so therefore, we're able to sell it to South Africa and other export markets.
And according to analysts like Morar, developing homegrown value chains has the potential to be incredibly lucrative.
If South Africa were able to take over 5 to 10% of what we import and manufacture it locally, that would mean anywhere between maybe $2.5 billion to $5 billion opportunity. So even a small change could have quite a dramatic impact.
Coming up next, how one company is using recycled tires on its path to success.
For an empowered Africa.
On the next Vital Signs, we're exploring the world of venom and toxin-derived medicine.
We have hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary information in this tube.
See how the newest innovations are coming from the oldest sources. Meet a fascinating group of researchers and scientists in search of nature's deadliest creatures.
It doesn't matter whether you're a big fan of snakes or not, they actually may save your life. Vital Signs, today on CNN, in association with Bangkok Dusit Medical Services.
The Dangote Group stands at the forefront of African enterprise. Since 1978, we've touched the lives of millions of people by meeting their basic needs. Our belief in the promise of Africa has taken us into 14 African countries, with substantial investments that will propel the continent towards greater prosperity, promising jobs, improved standards of living, and economic
해외가 너무 가고 싶은데 그 가고 싶은 이유 하나가
for an empowered Africa.
바닷가에서 스쿠버 다이빙 하고 싶어요. 사이판에 가면은 구루토라고 동굴이 있는데 내가 이렇게 많이 가본 건 아니지만 필리핀 보홀이나 이런 바다보다 사이판의 구루토 동굴에서 그 스쿠버 다이빙 하는 게 가장 멋진 것 같아요.
Steps taken to create a thriving international business are rarely straightforward, especially for African companies. But since 2004, one Ethiopian entrepreneur has made it her mission to create a globally known footwear brand. I caught up with Soul Rebel CEO Bethlehem Alemo to talk about how going digital has propelled her brand. Let's take a look. It's incredible to see how much Soul Rebels has grown over the past few years, but I'm always curious, when did the idea enter your mind and how did you take it from an idea into a profitable multinational business?
Through the process of me growing up in Ethiopia, I picked up a lot of ideas, starting from handmade products to recycling to be able to bring in some kind of products from nothing to something.
Growing up in the village and obviously seeing recycled products, specifically tires, being used to create shoes, did that give you a sense of understanding, ensuring that you use everything in its entirety and seeing value in things that people view as rubbish, in a sense?
That's fascinating to me growing up and see all these women working for nothing, actually for their home. So I was thinking if I created some kind of product, it should support the women who are creative and the artisans people around me who have this potential inside them. So that's why Soul Rebels came to life when I decided to marry these two different ideas.
You're in Barcelona, you're in the likes of Switzerland as well. Where would you say the biggest demand has come from after, expanding globally? What's the most exciting store for you outside of Ethiopia?
We are very, very excited to expand our products and sales through online, which is the North America market, have been very interesting for us. So we had a very big presence when we launched online. Also, because of the pandemic, we were expanding our line of product and services in North America. And I would say instead of opening the store, we will focus on in the next few years to really conquer the market online and deliver products through that.
So how many cities are you in at the moment? Did you have to scale back? I'm sure you did have to scale back for 2020 if you didn't have product to send.
Yes. We're about in 12 countries now, but we deliver about 55 countries online.
Tell me about your numbers right now. It's 2020. You're in the middle of a pandemic. How much have you grown since 2016? And has your business in any way changed because of the pandemic?
It is a very confusing time for a company like ours right now because there is no one way to follow. But we are definitely challenging ourselves to expand our line of services online and offline. We are trying to have a constant marketing and things like that that we follow to hit the numbers that we have in years.
So what's your message right now as someone that is, producing out of the continent and hoping that consumers are going to jump back on their feet and purchase down the line?
Look, the way that I see it is when a pandemic like this hits the world, absolutely it's going to be hard to believe this is happening right now because you have to rewrite your business plan, you rewrite everything that you built for a long time, and you build that culture for a long time, and you follow that footprint every single day. So to be able to lose that in one day, it's challenging, but at the same time, it's bringing a lot of opportunity. You have to see it. So there is huge amount of opportunity that we have to tap in.
Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Marketplace Africa. Take a look at our past stories on our website and keep up with us on social media. From me, Eleni Jokos, here in Johannesburg, I'll see you next time in the Marketplace.
The Profit Point, in association with Dangote.
You need from your man in Washington, who won't back down. The Lead with Jake Tapper, Tuesday through Saturday on CNN.
I'm David Culver in Wuhan, China.
CNN Seoul.
Hong Kong.
Istanbul.
In Athens, Greece.
In Copenhagen, Denmark.
In London, and this is CNN.
Business is all about making connections.
보냈죠? 10.
But some connections
13분?
are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
Bitten by the bug of curiosity. This is CNN 10. My name is Carl Azus. I'll be your explainer-in-chief. Global news. International relations are the key factors. Relevant stories. Everyday people whose action is changing their community. Complex issues explained. We're going back to the future. And 10-second trivia. You get a perfect 10 out of 10. All in 10 minutes. Stream at cnn.com/CNN10.
I'm Clarissa Ward in London, and this is CNN.
Hello and welcome to our viewers here in the United States and all around the world. I'm Michael Holmes. Coming up here on CNN Newsroom, protests in Washington have escalated into a night marred by violence. We will take you there live. Another day of the US shattering its own coronavirus record. I'll speak with a doctor seeing the devastation firsthand. And Tropical Storm Vamco is headed for Vietnam this hour. We'll have a live report from the CNN Weather Center. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate your company. Demonstrations in Washington in support of US President Donald Trump and his false claims of election fraud have taken a violent turn. Officials say one man was stabbed on Saturday night, is in critical condition, we're told. The mayor's office says 2 police officers were also injured and at least 20 arrests have been made. We don't have a full picture yet of who was attacked or who might be responsible for the violence, but that's not stopping the president from weighing in, tweeting a short time ago that his supporters, quote, aggressively fought back after what he described as Antifa attacked them. Sarah Seidner is on the phone for us from Washington with the very latest. You were there on the street all day. Sarah, what happened in D.C.? How did it unfold?
Look, there's a lot of different skirmishes that were going on for a while, Michael. At the very beginning, there were 3 different groups, if you will, that went out on social media trying to get people to show up. And that was a wholly peaceful event. That started around 9 o'clock in the morning and went till about 4 o'clock when they had their permit. That was the so-called Million Man March that was also coupled with a group called Stop the Steal and another group called March for Trump. There were thousands and thousands of people who came out to support Donald Trump because they believe that the election was stolen, although they are going on false information. It was a wholly peaceful event. But as night fell, that's when we started to see some skirmishes. And really what you're seeing are several different things. You're seeing anti-fascists who are out, who are anti-Trump as well. And when they see someone from, the Trump supporting side of things who come into the area where they are, we've seen, arguments unfold and then sometimes violent acts unfold as well. We've also seen, conversely, some of those folks who are anti-Trump who are walking the streets in large groups. And then we have seen Trump supporters, including the Proud Boys, who he infamously told to stand back and stand by during the very first 2020 presidential debate with Joe Biden. We have seen them running towards a group of people who were not being aggressive until confronted with a bunch of folks who were coming and screaming, curse words at them, and then, it started to turn into a bit of a melee. What we also have been seeing is that the police are very heavily involved in trying to stop the 2 sides from coming together. And this has been happening in places across really in the area of the Capitol, in the area at first of the Freedom Plaza, and then in the area of Black Lives Matter Plaza. And so we've been seeing this kind of dot all over the place in a certain radius, very near all of the things that sort of denote this is the capital of Washington, D.C. here in the States. And so this has been happening on and off ever since nightfall. But there hasn't been a huge amount of violence, but enough to have a very large police presence. And for the most part, Michael, police have come within seconds, not longer than minutes, when there is contact between these 2 groups, those who support Donald Trump and those who are very much against him.
Sarah, we mentioned the tweet from the president a short time ago. I want to read it for people so they get a sense of what he said. He said, quote, Antifa scum ran for the hills today when they tried attacking the people at the Trump rally because those people aggressively fought back
Antifa waited until tonight when 99% were gone to attack innocent MAGA people. DC police get going, do your job, don't hold back. I'm just curious, your sense on the street, what do protesters on either side tell you about the president's role in sort of continuing or stoking this division that we've seen today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for those who support him, often when he makes statements like that, it helps to stoke their confidence in going forward with whatever they decide to do. It certainly helps to gin up hatred between the two groups. And so, you know, you'll see some of that, and you'll see it being reflected in what people say, and that the president is with them, if you will. For the other side, it's just another, you know, another statement by the president, which they have come to expect. But to say also, you know, police, do your job. If he were to be paying attention and were to be out on the streets like I have been, you will see that the police are very active in D.C., more so than in several other cities that I have been in. They are there again within minutes, if not seconds, of groups coming together. That doesn't mean that they're always there in time, if you will, to stop any kind of physical altercation. But again, this has been sort of small skirmishes
발굽혀보기 20개만 하고 끝내겠습니다. 오늘
some folks who were here visiting and some folks who are from DC and who live in
영상은
the
여기서
city.
끝이지만
And, you know, they're
일단
very
턱걸이 할 거예요.
disappointed to see, and frankly, some of them are fearful to see what's happening. Many of them have said things to me like, you know, it's so sad that politics has gotten, you know, this acrimonious, that, you know, after an election, that people can't just accept what the voters have said in casting their ballots, and that there's this absolute
여기까지 하겠습니다.
towards one another when everyone that is